Welcome everybody to this session of statistics for the topic of hypothesis testing steps 2 and 3. Now, before we start, let's remind ourselves what a hypothesis is. An hypothesis is a statement about a value of a population parameter, whether it is the population mean or the standard deviation of the population, developed for the purpose of testing. Hypothesis testing is a procedure based on simple evidence and probability theory to determine whether the hypothesis is a reasonable statement or not. There are 6 steps to hypothesis testing, and in this session we're going to look at step 2 and step 3. So what is step 2? Step 2 is selecting the level of significance, or alpha, the Greek letter alpha. Now, alpha represents the level of risk or significance and is the probability of rejecting the null hypothesis H0 when it is true. Like probability, it's a value between 0 and 1. It is usually selected by the researcher before using the decision rule or step 4 and collecting the sample data or step 5. So normally, the level of significance or the level of risk will be given to you as part of the exercise. You just need to identify what this level of significance is. What is the alpha for the exercise? Now, we mentioned about having level of risk. We can have an error when we do hypothesis testing. Why do we have an error? Well, because we are making a hypothesis about a population, and then we take a sample to test that. And as long as you talk about testing a population based on a sample, there will be an error. Why is there an error? Because you're only taking a sample. You're not taking the whole population. So now there are 2 types of error, type 1 or type 2 error. So let's see the first one, type 1 error. Type 1 error is defined as the probability of rejecting the null hypothesis when it is actually true. So we reject the null when it is true. This is denoted by the Greek letter alpha and also known as the significance level, as we said. So we reject the null when it's actually true. Now, for me, to make it easier for me to remember, I call this the Trump error. Now, where is this coming from? And this is coming from the fact that in the 2016 elections in the US, you had that everybody told Donald Trump that he will lose the election, and he ended up actually winning it. So everybody was rejecting him. All the surveys said that he will lose, and then he actually won. Now, let's look at type 2 error. Type 2 error is defined as the probability of accepting the null hypothesis when it is actually false. And this is denoted by the Greek letter B. So accepting the null when it is actually false. So I call this the Clinton error. And again, on the 2016 elections in the US, everybody told Hillary Clinton that she would win. All the surveys said that she would win. All the newspapers and the TV shows were saying that she would win, and she actually lost. So everybody had accepted as a fact that she would win, and she lost. So that's a type 2 error. Now, to step 3. Step 3 is selecting the appropriate test statistics. Are we going to use Z or are we going to use T? Now, how do we decide which one we use? Well, the question to ask is, do we have the population standard deviation sigma? If you have the population standard deviation sigma, then you use Z. You use Z to figure out your critical value, which we'll see as part of step 4. And for step 5, you will use this formula. So in step 3, you are just making up your mind. Are you going to use the Z or the T distributions? Now, if you do not have the standard deviation of the population, you do not have it, then what you will have is the standard deviation of the sample. If you have the standard deviation of your sample, then you need to use the T distribution of the T table. And for step 4, you will look at the critical value from the T table, and in step 5, you will use this formula. And that's how you set up step 2 and step 3 for hypothesis testing. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.